Jaehwa watched the Indomitable push deeper into the Krethok formation. The ship was a wreck, systems failing. The memorial ceremony was held on Viridian 7, which had been officially renamed Doyen's Stand by unanimous coalition vote. Millions gathered in person. Billions more watched across the galaxy. The monument stood 300 meters tall, carved from black stone, with the names of every human who had died defending the coalition. At the top, in letters that could be seen from orbit, Captain Doyen Kim. Below that, Commander Taemin Park. And below that, Engineer Trainee Daehyun Go. 417 names in total, each one a person who had chosen to stand between innocence and destruction. Admiral Jaehwa Moon stood at the podium, looking out at the massive crowd. Humans and aliens standing together, species that had never known war, learning what sacrifice meant. "We are not conquerors," Jaehwa began. Her voice carried across the planet. "We are not monsters. We came from a world that tried to kill us every single day, a world of predators and disasters where the strong survived and the weak perished. Earth made us into fighters, into survivors, into people who refused to quit no matter how bad things got." She paused, looking at the names on the monument. "But Earth also taught us compassion. Because when you live on a death world, you learn that survival is easier when you help each other. You learn that strength means protecting the weak, not dominating them. You learn that the only way to truly win is to make sure everyone gets home safely." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. Captain Doyen Kim and his crew died defending people they barely knew, species they had only met 20 years ago. They died because that's what humans do when we see innocence threatened. We stand up. We fight back. And we don't run away, no matter the odds. Jaehwa's voice grew stronger. "The Krethok swarm is wounded but not destroyed. They will come back someday. But when they do, they won't face just humans. They'll face the entire coalition standing together. Captain Kim's sacrifice bought us time to prepare, time to learn, time to become strong enough to defend ourselves. We will not waste the gift he gave us." Governor Thelnix approached the podium next. The Quilith governor, who had once never seen violence, now wore a simple weapon at his side. Not because he wanted to use it, but because he refused to be helpless ever again. "I speak for all coalition species when I say this," Thelnix began, his translator carrying emotion that his voice could not. "You call yourselves Deathworlders. You came from hell and chose to be angels. The galaxy will never forget what you did for us. Your sacrifice is carved into our history. Your courage is taught to our children. Your names will live forever." He turned to face the monument. "Captain Kim, I wish I had met you before that terrible day. I wish I could have thanked you in person. But know this, your death was not in vain. Every child who survived because of you will grow up knowing your name. Every family that remains whole because of your sacrifice will honor your memory. You are not forgotten. You will never be forgotten." The ceremony continued for hours, speaker after speaker, human and alien, sharing stories of those who had fallen. Dr. Jiwan spoke about the children on the transport ship, how they still sang the human lullaby she had taught them. Major Sunho, promoted to colonel now, spoke about holding that breach point and knowing that behind him were lives worth dying for. When it was over, the crowd dispersed slowly. But they didn't leave empty-handed. Each person took a small stone from the memorial site, a physical reminder of what the humans had done. Across the galaxy, those stones appeared in homes, in schools, in government buildings, a reminder that peace required guardians. The changes came slowly but steadily. The coalition that had once prided itself on complete pacifism began to adapt, not abandoning their peaceful nature, but accepting that peace needed defenders. Sergeant Wusung's defense training program expanded to 50 worlds. Thousands of coalition citizens volunteered to learn basic combat skills, not to become soldiers, but to be able to protect their families until help arrived. "You're not trying to make me human," Pillik said during one training session. The young Trilaxian had become one of Wusung's best students. "No, I'm not," Wusung agreed. "Humans aren't better than you. We're just different. We evolved to fight. You evolved to think. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone. Then what are you teaching me? To survive, to protect, to be strong without losing your gentleness. That's the balance we all need to find." The coalition security force was restructured. The diplomatic fleet remained for peaceful contact. But now there was also the defense fleet. Joint human coalition ships crewed by mixed species patrolling the borders. The humans taught tactics and weapons. The coalition taught patience and strategy. Together they created something new. Lieutenant Nari, now Major Nari, ran the coalition's first integrated fighter academy. Her students were mixed species, learning human combat flying while keeping their own cultural approaches to problem solving. You pull away from danger, she told Velen during a training flight. That's your instinct. But sometimes you need to fly toward danger to protect others. It goes against everything my species believes. I know, but you're here because you chose to protect others. That choice is more important than instinct. Your people are peaceful, Velen. You always will be. But peaceful doesn't mean helpless. I'm teaching you to be both. Velen completed the training program 3 months later, not as good as a human pilot, but good enough. Good enough to defend his home. Good enough to buy time for others to evacuate. Good enough to make a difference. Dr. Yunji published her comprehensive study on humanity. The Death World Paradox, Violence as a Path to Peace. It became required reading in coalition schools, not to glorify violence but to understand it, to accept that the universe contained both beauty and horror, and that protecting one sometimes required facing the other. The most controversial section discussed human emotions, how humans could love deeply and fight viciously, how they could show mercy to enemies while being ruthless in combat, how they mourned their fallen while celebrating their victories. Humans are not simple, Yunji wrote. They contain multitudes. They are capable of terrible violence and incredible compassion, often in the same moment. This is what makes them effective protectors. They understand both the darkness they fight against and the light they fight for. Chancellor Quintar established the Protector Program. Humans would be stationed on coalition worlds not as conquerors but as teachers and defenders. They would train local populations, establish defenses, and be ready to respond to threats. We are not giving up our peaceful culture, Quintar announced to the Coalition Council. We are protecting it. The humans have shown us that strength and peace can coexist, that weapons do not make you violent, they simply give you choices, and that sometimes the most peaceful action is to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. Not everyone agreed. Some coalition species feared that accepting military power would corrupt their peaceful nature. Others worried that humans would eventually become their masters rather than their protectors. Commander Somin, now Ambassador Somin, addressed these concerns in a historic speech to the coalition. I understand your fears, she said. Humans are scary. We come from a world that tried to kill us, and we responded by becoming the deadliest species on that world. We perfected warfare. We built weapons that could destroy planets. We scared ourselves with our own capacity for violence. She paused, letting that sink in. But we also learned from our mistakes. We saw what unchecked violence could do. We witnessed the horrors of war and decided to choose a different path. Not the path of weakness, but the path of controlled strength. We kept our weapons, but changed how we use them. Humans will never rule the coalition, Somin continued. We don't want to. We've seen what empires become, and we want no part of it. We're here to teach, to protect, and to stand beside you as equals. And when you no longer need us, we'll go home and be happy that we left you strong enough to defend yourselves. The speech helped, but trust had to be earned. The humans knew that, so they worked harder to prove themselves. They trained coalition forces but never took command. They offered weapons but taught restraint. They shared their military knowledge while learning coalition wisdom. Cultural exchange flowed both ways. Humans learned patience from the Quillith, long-term thinking from the Trilaxians, and true cooperation from the Vorthins. The coalition learned courage from humans, tactical thinking, and the value of standing firm when principles were at stake. On Viridian 7, now renamed Doyun's Stand, a mixed community formed. Humans and aliens living together, sharing meals, sharing stories, sharing lives. The children played together, learning each other's languages and cultures. Human kids learned to appreciate beauty without violence. Alien kids learned that strength could be gentle. Principal caretaker Shivara opened a new school dedicated to cross-species education. The curriculum included both coalition philosophy and human history. Her students learned about the beauty of peaceful cooperation and the necessity of defending that peace. Today we study Captain Doyun Kim, she announced to her class of mixed-species children. Who can tell me why he's important? A small human boy raised his hand. He died saving people, The Krethuk swarm arrived like a nightmare made real. 37 bioships, each one the size of a city. dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Viridian system. Behind them, the Coalition had successfully evacuated 6 threatened worlds. Millions of civilians were safe, running deeper into Coalition space, but someone had to buy them time. Captain Doyen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display with cold calculation. 6 human warships, 37 bioships. The math was simple and terrible. Every tactical computer simulation gave the same result: total human annihilation in 4 hours. "Captain, Coalition Command is ordering us to retreat," Minho said quietly. "They say we've done enough. They say we don't need to die here." "What do you think, Minho? Should we run?" The young communications officer looked at the evacuation data streaming across his screen. 3 million civilians still in transit. They needed more time. "No, sir. We shouldn't." "Good man." Doyen opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Captain Kim. The Krethok are here in force, and we're all that stands between them and millions of innocent people. I won't lie to you. We probably won't survive this. But those civilians will. Their children will grow up. Their families will be safe. Because we stood here today. So let's make our stand count. Let's show the Krethok what happens when they threaten humanity's friends. All ships, weapons free. Give them hell." The human fleet moved forward to meet an enemy that outnumbered them 6-1. Behind them, the Coalition's diplomatic fleet watched in awe and horror. Admiral Vexith stood on his command ship, watching the humans advance toward certain death. "They're insane. They know they cannot win." Commander Somin stood beside him, her face calm. "Winning isn't the point, Admiral. Holding the line is the point. They're going to die. They're going to save millions. That's what humans do." The first Krethok bioship opened fire. Streams of organic projectiles, acidic and alive, reached out toward the human fleet. The Indomitable's point defense systems came alive, shooting down the incoming fire with computer precision. "All batteries return fire," Doyen ordered. The Indomitable's railguns spoke with thunder. Tungsten rounds traveling at a fraction of light speed tore into the bioship's hull. Green fluid exploded into space, but the bioship kept coming. They were tough, evolved over millennia to survive in the void. Commander Taman pulled up the tactical display. "Captain, I'm reading a pattern in their formation. The smaller bioships are protecting the larger ones. If we can break their formation, we can cause chaos." "How?" Taman smiled grimly. "Ramming speed." Doyen looked at his tactical officer. They had served together for 15 years. Friends, brothers in all but blood. "Taman, it's the only way to break their line, and you know it. One ship rams through, the others exploit the gap. Basic tactics. I'm not sending any of my ships on a suicide run. You're not sending anyone. I'm volunteering. Let me take the escort frigate Defiant. She's already damaged from the last battle. Let me make her death mean something." Doyen wanted to refuse, wanted to order Taman to stand down, but he knew his friend was right. One sacrifice could save the fleet, could buy time for the civilians, could make the difference. "Make it count, Commander." Taman saluted. "It's been an honor, Captain." 5 minutes later, Taman sat in the captain's chair of the Defiant, a small escort frigate with a crew of 30 volunteers. They had loaded every missile they had, armed every weapon, and pointed the ship's nose at the biggest bioship in the Krethok formation. "All hands, this is Commander Park. We're going to hit them so hard their descendants will feel it. Maximum speed. All power to forward shields. Let's show these monsters what humans are made of." The Defiant accelerated to speeds that made her hull scream. The Krethok formation saw the threat and shifted to intercept, but they were too slow. Taman's ship was small and fast, and she was crewed by people who had already accepted death. "For Daehyun," Taman shouted, as the Defiant slammed into the bioship at relativistic speeds. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The bioship shattered, taking 3 smaller vessels with it. The Krethok formation broke, exactly as Taman had predicted, and the remaining human ships poured through the gap, weapons blazing. On the Indomitable, Doyen watched his friend die and felt something break inside him. But there was no time for grief. Not now. "All ships, Exploit the breach. Make Taemon's sacrifice count. Lieutenant Nari led her fighter squadron through the chaos. The Krethok had launched their own fighter craft, organic things that flew on living wings. She had been in combat for 3 hours straight, and her body was beyond exhaustion. But there were still civilians evacuating, and she still had ammunition. "Viper 2, I'm out of missiles," her wingman called. "Running on guns only." "Same here. We keep flying until there's nothing left to fly with." A Krethok fighter came at her from above. She pulled hard, felt the G-forces try to crush her, and came up behind it. 3 quick bursts and it tumbled away, dead. She checked her ammunition counter. 60 rounds left. Against hundreds of enemies. This is Viper lead to all fighters. We're not making it back to the carrier. You all know that. So let's make our deaths expensive. Every Krethok we kill is one less that threatens civilians. Keep flying, keep fighting. Copy that, lead. See you on the other side. In the Indomitable's engineering section, Chief Hyunwoo watched his systems fail one by one. They were taking too much damage. The ship was dying around him, held together by determination and prayer. "Captain, I'm reading cascading failures across all systems. Weapons, shields, engines. We're falling apart. How long can you keep us in this fight?" Hyunwoo looked at his screens at the damage reports that said this ship should already be dead. "I can give you 10 more minutes, maybe 15. After that, we're a drifting hulk." "Then give me 15, Chief. 15 minutes might be enough." Hyunwoo looked at his engineering team. They were exhausted, burned, bleeding from a dozen minor injuries. They had been performing miracles for 3 hours. Now he was asking for one more. "You heard the captain. 15 more minutes. Let's hold this ship together with our bare hands if we have to." Dr. Bora worked in the medical bay, which was now overflowing with wounded, human and alien alike, because the coalition ships had joined the fight. Their weapons were weak, their tactics poor, but they were there, standing beside humanity against the darkness. "Doctor, this one's critical," a medic called out. Bora moved to the table, a Quillith pilot, her shell shattered, her fluids leaking. Standard procedure said this patient was beyond saving. Bora ignored standard procedure. She had been a combat surgeon in Earth's last war. She knew how to save people who should be dead. Her hands moved with practiced precision. Biofoam, pressure sealant, a chemical cocktail that would stabilize the patient long enough to get her to proper surgery. It was ugly medicine, battlefield medicine, but it worked. "She'll live," Bora said. "Next patient." Lieutenant Commander Hanasu sat at the intelligence station, watching the Krethok communication patterns. She had been studying them for weeks, trying to understand how the swarm thought. And suddenly, she saw it. A pattern in their quantum entanglement. A rhythm to their commands. "Captain, I've found something. The Krethok communicate through quantum channels, but there's a central node. One of the bioships is coordinating all the others. If we destroy it, the swarm will lose cohesion." Doyen looked at the tactical display. The central node was at the back of the formation, protected by a dozen other bioships. Getting to it would be impossible, unless you were willing to die trying. "Mark that ship for me, Hana. We're going in." "Sir, we'll never make it through. We'll make it or we'll die trying. Either way, we end this." The Indomitable turned, her damaged engines pushing her toward the heart of the Krethok swarm. Every weapon she had left fired continuously, clearing a path through the smaller bioships. The hull took hit after hit, atmosphere venting, systems failing, but she kept moving forward. Major Sunho led his Marines in a desperate boarding action. A Krethok bioship had latched onto the Indomitable's hull, trying to breach it. His job was to stop them. He stood at the breach point with 20 Marines waiting for the hull to give way. "Remember your training," he said calmly. "Short, controlled bursts. Watch your backgrounds. Don't let them through." The hull exploded inward. Krethok warriors poured through the breach, and the Marines opened fire. The corridor became a killing ground. The creatures were tough, but the Marines were tougher. They held the line because behind them were 300 children who had survived one Krethok attack and didn't deserve to die in another. "Hold the Line, Sunho roared, his rifle empty, switching to his sidearm. Do not let them through. On the bridge, Admiral Jae-hwa Moon dropped out of FTL with 3 additional warships. She had come from Earth at maximum speed, but even with reinforcements, they were still outnumbered. Captain Kim, this is Admiral Moon. We're here to support you. Doyen's voice came back, strained and tired. Negative, Admiral. We're on a one-way trip. Use your ships to cover the evacuation. Make sure those civilians get out. Doyen, I'm not going to watch you die here. You're not watching me die, Admiral. You're watching me save millions. Now get those civilians to safety. That's an order. On the Indomitable, Doyen watched as the evacuation proceeded. The evacuation of Viridian 7 was complete. 50,000 colonists, alive and safe, scattered across Coalition space in temporary housing. The human fleet had lost 47 people, including engineer trainee Daehyun Go. The Krethok swarm had retreated, but not before sending a signal into deep space. Captain Doyen sat in the conference room aboard the Coalition command station, facing 6 alien admirals who looked at him like he was something dangerous that had wandered into their peaceful garden, which he supposed was accurate. Captain Kim, Admiral Vexith began, his translator device humming. You violated 16 separate Coalition regulations. You engaged in military action without authorization. You ignored direct orders from your superiors. Yes, sir, Doyen said simply, and you would do it again. Without hesitation, sir. The room fell silent. The admirals looked at each other, their various appendages and sensory organs conveying confusion. Commander Sumin Ryu, humanity's diplomatic liaison, sat beside Doyen and tried not to smile. She had warned Coalition Command that humans were different. Chancellor Quintar, the head of Coalition Security, leaned forward. Captain, help us understand. Your people have been part of the Coalition for only 20 years. You know our ways. We solve conflicts through diplomacy, not violence. Yet you bring warships into our space and engage in battle without permission. Why? Doyen thought about how to explain, how to make peaceful species understand what it meant to be human. Chancellor, how many children were on that school transport? 300, Quintar said, confused by the question. And how many would have survived if we had waited for diplomatic solutions? Silence, exactly, Doyen continued. Your way is beautiful. A galaxy without war, without violence is something my species has dreamed about for thousands of years. But your way only works when everyone agrees to it. The Krethok don't care about your diplomatic protocols. They just want to eat, and someone has to stop them. But the cost, Admiral Vexith said. 47 of your people died. Does that not trouble you? It haunts me, Doyen said, and for the first time the aliens heard emotion in his voice. Every single name. I know all of them. I wrote letters to their families. But you know what troubles me more? The thought of telling 300 families that their children died because we followed regulations instead of doing what was right. The meeting ended with no clear resolution. The Coalition couldn't punish Doyen because he had saved 50,000 of their citizens, but they couldn't reward him either because he had broken their most fundamental rules. So they did the only thing they could. They asked the humans to stay. We need time to prepare a proper defense, Chancellor Quintar said privately to Soman. The Krethok sent a signal before they retreated. More are coming. Will your people help us? Soman smiled. Chancellor, you couldn't make us leave now if you tried. We don't abandon friends in trouble. The human fleet established a forward operating base on Viridian 7's moon. Sergeant Woo Sung-oh, a combat engineer, led the reconstruction efforts, but he was also doing something the Coalition had never seen, teaching colonists how to fight. I don't understand, said Pillix, a young Trilaxian volunteer. My species has never needed violence. Why should I learn now? Wusung cleaned his rifle as he spoke. Because the galaxy has violence in it whether you like it or not. I'm not trying to make you into a soldier. I'm trying to make sure you can protect your family if the bad guys come back. But you will protect us. We'll try. But what if we're not there? What if we're fighting somewhere else and you're alone? Don't you want to be able to save yourself? Pillix thought about the Krethok attack. About hiding in the dark while monsters walk the streets. About waiting for someone else to save him. Yes, he said quietly. I want to learn. The training was basic. How to use simple weapons. How to secure a building. How to evacuate civilians under fire. Wusong kept it simple because these people weren't warriors. They were farmers and miners and teachers who just needed to survive until help arrived. Dr. Eunji-nam sat in her research station, studying humanity's history. She was a xenoanthropologist, trying to understand what made humans so different from other species. The Coalition had given her access to everything: Earth's wars, genocides, conflicts, and somehow, eventual peace. It doesn't make sense, she muttered to herself. Dr. Borashin looked up from her medical research. What doesn't? Humans. Look at this. Yunji pulled up a data screen. In your last 300 years, you had 2 world wars, dozens of regional conflicts, multiple nuclear weapons crises. You almost destroyed your own species, but then you stopped. You formed a global government. You eliminated war on Earth. How? Boris smiled sadly. We didn't eliminate war. We just redirected it. We learned that we're much better at fighting for others than fighting each other. Give humans something to protect, and we'll walk through hell without hesitation. Make us fight each other and we'll destroy everything. But why are you so good at violence? Because Earth is a death world. Everything on our planet tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, the diseases. We evolved to be survivors, to adapt, to never give up. And now we use all that violence and aggression to protect instead of destroy. Yunji saved her notes. The Coalition species evolved on peaceful worlds. We never needed to become predators because we had no predators. You became apex predators and then chose to use that power for good. That's remarkable. It's not remarkable, Bora said. It's just who we are. Back on Viridian 7, the colonists were returning to their homes. The humans had cleared the Krethok corruption and rebuilt the damaged structures. But now the planet had something it never had before. Weapons. Governor Thelnik stood at the newly constructed defense perimeter with Commander Taman. The human officer was teaching his security team how to use the automated turrets. This makes me uncomfortable, Thelnik admitted. We don't have weapons on Coalition worlds. You do now, Taman said. Chancellor Quintar approved it. These defenses won't stop a major attack, but they'll slow one down long enough for help to arrive. And you truly believe more attacks are coming? Governor, the Krethok sent a signal before they left. They're calling for reinforcements. This isn't over. It's just beginning. Thelnik looked at the weapons, at the humans training his people, at the warships orbiting his world. Everything had changed. The peaceful galaxy he had known was gone. Commander, are all human worlds like this? Armed, ready for war? Taman considered the question. Not war. Ready for survival. We learned a long time ago that hope is not a strategy. You hope for peace, but you prepare for war. That way, when war comes, you can protect the peace. Your species is very strange. We get that a lot. Ambassador Somin Ryu met with Chancellor Quintar in private. The Chancellor looked tired, his bioluminescence dim with stress. Your people terrify mine, he said bluntly. Do you know what the other species are saying? That humans are monsters who simply happen to be on our side. That you're violent, aggressive, dangerous? And are we? Somin asked calmly. Yes. But you're also the only reason 50,000 of my people are alive. Quintar's lights flickered in what Somin recognized as confusion. How do we reconcile this? How do we accept that the most violent species we've ever met are also the most protective? By understanding that violence and compassion aren't opposites, Chancellor. They're tools. We use violence to protect our compassion. We fight so that others don't have to. Your people are beautiful because you've never needed to be warriors. Our people are functional because we've never stopped being warriors. Together, maybe we can have both. The Coalition species are debating whether to ask you to leave or to make you our official protectors. And what do you think we should be? Quintar was quiet for a long moment. I think you should be our friends. And I think we should learn from you. Not to be violent, but to be strong. Because strength without violence is what we need. On the Indomitable, Nari Choi ran a training simulation with 3 Coalition pilots who had volunteered to learn human combat flying. They were terrible at it. Their instincts were all wrong. They pulled away from danger instead of pushing through it. They tried to find peaceful solutions instead of taking the shot. Stop, 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 Nari called out, ending the simulation. You're thinking too much. In combat, you don't have time to think. You have to react. But how do we know what to react with? Asked Velen, a young Quillith pilot. Training. We train until the reactions become automatic. Until you don't think, should I shoot? You just shoot. That sounds horrible. Nari laughed. It is. Combat is horrible. It's terrifying and chaotic and nothing goes according to plan. But you know what's more horrible? Watching people die because you hesitated. So we train, we practice, we turn horror into routine so that when the real thing comes we can function. Do you ever get scared? Felon asked. Every single time. But I fly anyway because people need me to. The coalition pilots looked at each other. They were beginning to understand what humans meant by courage. It wasn't the absence of fear. It was fear, plus action. Dr. Bora made a discovery in her lab. The Krethok biology had a weakness. They communicated through quantum entanglement, their entire swarm connected by something close to telepathy. If she could The emergency alarm screamed through the communication center on Viridian 7. Governor Thelnix watched the screens with his 4 eyes wide in terror. The creatures were everywhere. Black and twisted, they moved like a living nightmare across his beautiful mining colony. Buildings dissolved into organic matter as the swarm consumed everything in its path. Send the distress signal now, Thelnix ordered, his translator struggling to keep up with his panic. The communication officer's tentacles flew across the controls. Signal sent, Governor. Coalition command confirms receipt. The diplomatic fleet will arrive in 6 days. 6 days. Thelnix looked at the screens again. The Krethok swarm had already consumed 3 districts. 50,000 civilians were trapped on this rock, and the monsters were eating their world alive. They didn't have 6 days. They had maybe 3. Keep broadcasting the distress call on all channels, Thelnix said quietly. Maybe someone closer will hear us. 3 sectors away, Captain Doyen Kim sat in the command chair of the Terran vessel Indomitable. His ship was ugly by galactic standards, all hard angles and exposed weapon mounts. The coalition species built their ships to look like art. Humans built theirs to survive. Captain, we're picking up a distress signal, Ensign Minho Kwan said from the communication station. It's a coalition mining colony. They're under attack by something called a Krethok swarm. Doyen sat forward. How far? 4 hours at maximum speed, sir. Commander Taman Park pulled up the tactical display. Sir, we're supposed to be running training exercises. Coalition Command hasn't authorized us to respond to emergencies in their space. Doyen looked at the distress signal data. 50,000 civilians, children, families, people who had probably never seen violence in their entire lives. He thought about the rules, the regulations, the careful diplomatic dance that Earth had to perform to be accepted by the peaceful coalition. Then he thought about leaving people to die while he waited for permission. All ships, combat formation. Set course for Viridian 7, maximum speed. Doyen's voice was calm and clear. Battle stations. The bridge crew moved instantly. They had trained for this. Not the paperwork and politics, but the fighting. The saving of lives. Sir, Coalition Command is ordering us to stand down, Minho said. They say the diplomatic fleet will handle it. Tell them we copy their message, Doyen said. Then turn off that channel. Taman allowed himself a small smile. That's going to be a lot of paperwork later, Captain. I'd rather fill out forms than explain to families why we let their people die, Doyen replied. He looked at Dr. Boris Shin, who had come to the bridge. Doctor, prepare medical bay for mass casualties. This is going to be ugly, Bora nodded. She was small and calm, but Doyen knew she had worked in war zones on Earth. How many species are we expecting? Unknown. Could be a dozen different biologies. I'll be ready. She left the bridge without another word. Lieutenant Nari Choi's voice crackled over the comm from the fighter bay. Viper Squadron ready for launch, Captain. Just say the word. Stand by, Viper. You'll get your chance soon enough. The Indomitable and her battle group tore through space. 5 human warships, small compared to the massive coalition vessels but packed with weapons that would horrify the peaceful aliens. Railguns, missile batteries, point defense systems. Humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. Now they would use that terrible knowledge to protect others. Dropping out of FTL in 30 seconds, the navigation officer called out. Doyen stood. All weapons free. Rules of engagement. Anything that's not a civilian is a target. If it moves and it's not broadcasting a friendly signal, kill it. The ship shuddered as it dropped back into normal space. The view screen lit up with the horror of Viridian 7. The colony was half gone. Where buildings should have stood, there was only black organic matter. Bioships, massive and alive, floated above the colony like vultures. Smaller Krethok creatures swarmed through the streets. The distress signals from the surface were getting weaker. Mother of God, someone whispered. Target the bioships. Doyen ordered. Taemin, I want a combat plan in 30 seconds. Bora, prepare to receive wounded. Minho, tell those people down there that help has arrived. The Indomitable's weapons came online. The sound of charging railguns echoed through the hull. Doyen watched the tactical display as his ship and her escorts moved into attack formation. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the colony, Minho said. Governor Thelnix wants to know who we are. Tell him we're human. Tell him we're here to help. And tell him to get his people ready for evacuation. On the surface, Thelnix stared at his screen in confusion. Humans? He had heard of them. The new species that had joined the coalition only 20 years ago. The ones from the Death World called Earth. The ones that scared the other species with their violent history and their weapons. They're attacking the Krethok, his tactical officer said in amazement. Governor, the human ships are actually attacking. Thelnix watched as lines of fire reached out from the human vessels. The bioships exploded in bursts of green fluid. The smaller Krethok creatures on the ground suddenly scattered as human fighters screamed overhead. Weapons blazing. This is Captain Doyen Kim of the Terran vessel Indomitable, a voice said in perfect coalition standard. Governor Thelnix, we are beginning combat operations. Get your people to the evacuation points. We'll hold the line. Hold the line. Thelnix didn't understand. The coalition didn't have lines. They had diplomatic solutions. They had peaceful negotiations. They didn't have warfare, but these humans did. All citizens, this is your governor. Thelnix broadcast across the colony. Move to the evacuation points immediately. The humans are here. They're fighting for us. Doyen watched the tactical display as his ships engaged the Krethok swarm. The bioships were tough, but they weren't built for real combat. They were built to overwhelm peaceful species who didn't fight back. Humans fought back. Viper Squadron, you are cleared for launch, Doyen ordered. Provide air support for ground evacuation. Nari Choi felt the familiar excitement as her fighter launched from the Indomitable. 12 fighters, small and fast, dove toward the planet's surface. Below her, she could see the colonists running through the streets, trying to reach the spaceport. Viper 2, I've got Krethok ground forces moving to intercept the civilians, her wingman called. Copy that. All Vipers, weapons free. Let's clear them a path. The fighters dove, guns blazing. The Krethok creatures were tough, but not tough enough. Nari's cannon rounds tore through them like paper. She pulled up hard, looped around, and made another pass. On the ground, the colonists ran in terror, not just from the Krethok, but from the humans who were saving them. The sound of human weapons was deafening. The sight of human fighters was terrifying. These weren't the peaceful diplomatic vessels they knew. These were machines built for one purpose, war, but they were fighting for the colonists. Dying for them. Chief Engineer Hyunwoo Jang watched his damage control boards light up. Captain, we're taking fire from the larger bioships. Shields are holding, but we can't take this forever. We don't need forever, Doyen said. We just need long enough to get those people out. Yes, sir. I'll keep this ship flying if I have to hold it together with my bare hands. Doyen believed him. That was the thing about humans. They didn't know when to quit. They didn't understand the concept of acceptable losses. They fought until the job was done or they were dead. Captain receiving transmission from Coalition Command, Minho said quietly. Admiral Vexith is ordering us to withdraw immediately. He says we've violated 16 different regulations. Tell the Admiral I'll answer all his questions after we save these people. Doyen out. Taemin looked at his friend and captain. They're going to crucify you for this. Doyen smiled. Probably. But those 50,000 people will be alive to see it. Worth it. Below them, the first evacuation ships began to lift off, packed with terrified but living colonists. The Indomitable shuddered as another Krethok bioship exploded under its guns. The battle for Viridian 7 had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn what humans really were. The spaceport was chaos. 20,000 colonists pressed toward the loading docks while the sky above them burned with human weapons fire. Governor Thelnix had never imagined such violence could exist in reality. He had studied ancient history, read about wars on primitive worlds, but seeing it was different. Dr. Bora Shin moved through the crowd like a calm point in a storm. Her medical team had set up field hospitals in 3 locations around the spaceport. Wounded colonists lay on makeshift beds while human medics worked on them with quick, efficient movements. This one's losing fluid pressure, a medic called out. Bora was there in seconds. The patient was Aquilith, her shell cracked from falling debris. Bora's hands moved quickly, sealing the wound with biofoam that her species had developed for battlefield medicine. The Quillith's eyes focused on her in wonder. "You're saving me while your people are fighting up there?" the Quillith whispered. "That's why we're fighting," Bora said simply. "So people like you can live." Above the spaceport, Nari pulled her fighter through another impossible turn. 3 Krethok flyers were on her tail, but they were slow and predictable. She cut her engines, let them overshoot, then lit them up again and fell in behind them. 3 quick bursts and they were falling from the sky in pieces. "Viper lead, this is Viper 6, I'm taking fire and my systems are damaged." Nari checked her tactical display. Viper 6 was Junho Park, a kid fresh out of flight school. Good pilot but inexperienced. She watched his icon spiral as Krethok ground fire tracked him. Viper 6, cut engines and glide. "I'm coming to you, they're going to hit me." "Not if I hit them first." "Trust me, kid." Nari dove toward the Krethok ground position that was targeting Junho. Her targeting computer screamed warnings at her about the angle being too steep, the speed too high. She ignored it. Humans had been ignoring warning systems since they invented them. Her guns tore into the Krethok position. The creature scattered and died. Junho's fighter leveled out and limped toward the Indomitable's hangar. "Thanks, lead, I thought I was dead." "Not today. Get back to the ship and let them patch you up. We've still got work to do." On the Indomitable's bridge, Commander Taman watched the battle unfold across multiple screens. The tactical situation was actually improving. The human ships had destroyed 8 of the 12 bioships, and ground forces were being cleared sector by sector, but it was taking too long. "Captain, sensors are picking up movement in the asteroid field," he said. "Something's out there." Doyen moved to the sensor station. "Show me." The display lit up with a new contact. A civilian transport ship dead in the water, surrounded by smaller Krethok vessels like sharks around wounded prey. The data feed showed the transport's identification, a school ship carrying 300 children from 6 different species. Everyone on the bridge went silent. They all knew what it meant. The transport was too far away. If they sent ships to rescue it, they would have to leave the spaceport weakly defended. The smart tactical decision was obvious. Save the many, not the few. Doyen had never been good at smart tactical decisions. "Taman, you have command of the evacuation. Keep loading those ships and keep the Krethok off them. Take 3 vessels with you." "Sir, you're going after that transport." "Yes." "That's tactically insane. If we split our forces, we could lose everything. If we don't split our forces, those kids die." Doyen looked at his friend. "I didn't come all this way to pick and choose who lives, Commander. We save them all or die trying." Taman stood silent for a moment, then saluted. "Good luck, Captain. Don't die out there." "Same to you." The Indomitable broke from the main battle group, accompanied by 2 escort frigates. Behind them, Taman directed the remaining ships to cover the evacuation. He watched Doyen's ship disappear toward the asteroid field and said a prayer to gods he didn't believe in. Pilot Officer Yuna Han sat at the navigation station, her hands steady on the controls. The asteroid field was dense, a nightmare of spinning rocks and debris. Threading a ship the size of the Indomitable through it was supposed to be impossible. "Give me a path, Yuna," Doyen said quietly. "Working on it, sir. This is going to be rough." "I trust you." Those 3 words meant everything. Yuna's hands flew across her console, plotting a course that would make veteran pilots weep. The Indomitable dove into the asteroid field at a speed that made the hull groan in protest. Inside the stranded transport, Principal Caretaker Shivara held the children close. They were crying, terrified, calling for parents they would never see again. Shivara was insectoid, a species that had never known war. She didn't know how to fight. She could only hold these babies and wait for death. Then the radio crackled to life. "Civilian transport, this is Captain Doyen Kim of the Terran vessel Indomitable. Hold tight. We're coming for you." Shivara stared at the radio. "Humans, the violent species, the ones from the death world. They were coming here. Captain, we are surrounded. The creatures are trying to break through our hull. We have minutes at most, then we'll be there in minutes. Keep those kids calm. Help is on the way." Shivara looked at the children. How could she explain this? How could she tell them that their salvation was coming in the form of the galaxy's most terrifying species? "Children," she said in her gentlest voice. "The humans are coming. They're going to save us." Some of the children cried harder. They had heard stories about humans, about their wars, their weapons, their capacity for violence. In their short lives, humans were the monsters in bedtime stories. Major Sunho Bayek stood in the Indomitable's hangar bay with his Marine detachment. 30 men and women in combat armor checking weapons and gear. They knew what they were about to do. "Listen up," Sunho said. "We're going to board a civilian transport that's under attack. Our mission is simple. Kill every Kreethok on that ship and protect those children. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if you're scared. Those kids need us and we don't fail." "Sir, yes, sir," 30 voices responded as one. The Indomitable burst from the asteroid field like an avenging angel. Kreethok hunter ships immediately swarmed toward it, but they were too slow. Human point defense systems tracked them with computer precision and destroyed them with cold efficiency. "Yuna, put us alongside that transport," Doyen ordered. "Aye, Captain. This is going to be close." The Indomitable slid through space with impossible grace for such a large vessel. Yuna's hands danced across her controls, using the asteroids as shields, threading the needle between rocks that should have torn them apart. Chief Engineer Hyunwoo watched his damage displays light up with minor impacts. "Hull integrity holding, Captain. But we're accumulating damage. We can't take much more of this. We won't have to." "Sunho, you're clear for boarding." The Marines launched from the Indomitable in assault pods, small armored capsules that slammed into the transport's hull and burned through. Sunho was first through the breach, his rifle up and ready. The interior of the transport was a nightmare. Kreethok creatures had breached the hull in multiple locations. They were moving toward the center of the ship where the children were barricaded. The aliens turned as the Marines entered, their eyeless faces somehow conveying surprise. "Light them up," Sunho roared. The corridor became hell. Human weapons tore into Kreethok flesh with brutal efficiency. The creatures were tough, but the Marines had trained for this. Fire and movement. Cover and advance. Basic infantry tactics perfected over millennia of human warfare. A Kreethok warrior leaped at Sunho. He sidestepped, letting it crash into the wall, then put 3 rounds into its head. It dropped, twitching. "Push forward. Those kids are 50 meters ahead." The Marines moved like a machine. Every time a Kreethok appeared, it died. They cleared the corridor meter by bloody meter, leaving nothing alive behind them. Inside the barricaded section, Shivara heard the sounds of battle. Explosions. Weapons fire. Screaming that didn't sound human or Kreethok. Then silence. Something hit the barricade door. Once. Twice. It buckled inward. "Stay behind me, children," Shivara said, though she had no idea how to protect them. The door flew open. A human stood there in armor covered in dark Kreethok blood. His weapon was still smoking. He looked like a demon from ancient myths. Then he took off his helmet. Major Sunho Bayek had a kind face. Tired eyes, a gentle smile that seemed wrong on someone covered in the evidence of violence. "Hi there," he said softly. "I'm Sunho. We're here to take you home." "Is everyone okay?" 300 children stared at him in silence. Then a small Quillith child no more than 6 years old broke away from Shivara and ran to Sunho. The child wrapped tiny arms around the human's armored leg. "You came?" the child whispered. "The humans came." Sunho knelt down, making himself small and non-threatening. "Of course we came. We don't leave kids behind. Never." One by one, the other children approached. Different species, different worlds, but all of them reaching out to touch the humans who had fought through hell to save them. Shivara watched in amazement as her students, who moments ago had been terrified of humans, now clung to them like beloved family. Dr. Jiwon Lee, the human psychologist who had accompanied the Marines, moved among the children with gentle efficiency. She checked them for injuries, spoke to them in soft tones, taught them a simple human song to calm their nerves. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star," she sang, and the children repeated it in their various voices and languages.